You should have listened the nice voice. So you can feel free to write your name, your organization, country, and the email, and your link with e-participation, why you decided to join us today. You can do so in the chat below. Today we're going to discuss, I think, one of the it's an interesting topic, and something that we will each time during each of our community meetings we're discussing about. That is finding ways how to engage young people at a local level. And I'm sure that most of you would be asking these questions, that it seems that motivating young people to participating is becoming more difficult. So we're trying to ask these questions. And is it because young people do not really care about the being involved in the community, or it could be the way we're going about this? And today our guest Matthew will be sharing with us how this European network, the PAL network, is managing to motivate young people to participate, how they're using digital tools, and interestingly as well, gamification methodologies to engage young people, and also follow-up strategies. Matthew, he's still a young person himself. He's now working with the PAL network, but interestingly enough, he started there as on a European solidarity project as a volunteer there. And he will be sharing with us how they're managing to achieve this, how they're managing to engage young people at a local level. Matthew, you can take over the floor, and
okay, just let me find myself on the two screens that I have, and I just got lost.
from our end, we're seeing your presentation. So
that's good. That's good. That's a good start. So you see my presentation clearly. Okay, perfect. So thank you for this introduction. It was quite insightful, as I see that you did some background research, which is nice. Yes, indeed, I'm working for the PAL network, that stands for Developing Youth Participation at the Local Level, which is sort of the topic of today's discussion. And I'm going to speak about how we motivate young people to participate through different ways. So this won't be very much detailed in terms of content, so I won't go into details of one particular project because this is a wide area. I decided more to go to the direction of how in different projects we try to challenge the barriers of youth participation, and how we try to motivate young people to participate. So as you know, my name is Mateusz Hoffman. I'm a project manager nowadays, working on more on these digital projects connected to digitalization, e-participation, gamification in youth participation. But apart from that, I manage some projects connected to local youth councils or migrant participation in the PAL network. I'm also a member of advisory board on digital transformation of Salto participation and information, and a game developer in my free time. To give you just a better context of what I personally do and what are my fields of interest. And to also give you a better context of DIPAL network itself, as there will be a lot of us in the next slides, DIPAL network is an informal and European network of youth organizations, NGOs, municipalities, institutions that are connected by the one interest, which is developing youth participation in decision-making processes at local level. And me personally, I represent DIPAL Network, the organization that works in Portugal, has headquarters in Portimao and Lisbon, and has this very narrow focus on developing youth participation in decision-making processes. But all the other members from different countries, they have this interest as one of many activities that they develop. This is a platform of sharing good practices, sharing interests, exchanging projects and bringing project opportunities, training opportunities to increase the capacity of members, of municipality officers, of youth workers on creating successful and sustainable youth participation in decision-making processes. And in DIPAL network, Portuguese DIPAL network, we work on 3 different levels, which is also quite relevant for the rest of the presentation. The first level is international, which is this network that I'm presenting shortly here. The second level is, and on this level, we are mapping good practices, we are developing new models, we are organizing training opportunities, study sessions for the members, or also for other youth workers interested in these topics. At the national level in Portugal, we provide consultations to municipalities, several municipalities, also national agency and national bodies connected to youth participation on topics of developing youth strategies, youth implementation of youth policies, youth action plans, building the capacity of youth workers on decision-making processes, and so on. And then at the local level, we in Portimao, which is a small town at the south of Portugal, are responsible for the implementation of whole youth policies, which was delegated to us by the local municipality. So we manage the youth center, we provide volunteering programs, and so on. So this gives us some interesting insights on different scales and levels. And yeah, I'm going to talk to you about how we motivate young people to participate in different projects. But before I start, I'd like to map a bit your interests. Just to agree on the common ground, I will talk more about democratic participation of young people. So of participation of young people in democratic processes. And this is important because the more groups we have represented in democratic processes, the more it is inclusive, pluralistic, and becomes of better quality, especially for young people. So young people's participation in decision-making processes, and processes that affect them, is like the most, should be the fundament of democracies, as these policies will affect them most in the future. This is something that that we strongly believe in, and it reflects in our work. Just on the side, if you want to add something or ask anything specifically, don't hesitate to just turn on your microphone and ask, or you can try to write on the chat, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to follow it.
So, Matt, I don't know if you're changing the slide or not, but we're seeing still the first slide that you started off with.
See, exactly. So I was changing the slides. So
yeah, we thought so. Anita thought so as well, but
okay, yeah, that's why I was not seeing your messages on the chat, but now I do.
Fair enough. Now we're seeing this. Maybe you can change the slide.
Yeah.
Okay, it's working perfectly.
Here we are. Here we started.
Okay.
Here I described you what DIPAL network is, That was just a few slides. This I skipped. Introduction slide, definition where we arrived to. And now I want to invite you to a short Menti, if you don't mind, if I can use it to engage a bit with you. So I'd like you to join using this code to menti.com. You can also scan the QR code or if you're on a phone, or simply join by using this link. And what I want to ask you is, what are the barriers of youth participation from your personal perspective, from your personal experience? Okay, it's access to, I suppose, participatory spaces. Shoot different ideas. Let's see if this is no interest at all. So this is from the young people's side, that they are not interested in taking part in decision-making processes in participatory democracy. That's a good point, and we often meet with this perspective, or rather this reality, I would say. Awareness of the possibility to participate, lack of opportunities to participate. So, okay. So lack of, and when there are opportunities, there is lack of awareness to take part. Busy schedules, yeah, that's definitely something that drives them from participation, when having full days of work and study. Lack of political will of decision makers to create and involve young people, not engaging youth participation, okay. Seriousness on side of decision makers, that's definitely a thing. Not knowing how to participate, lack of information, okay. No, on thinking nothing will change even if they give their input. That's definitely a concern. So lack of trust that their voice matters and changes something. Lots of talk about no action. This relates to the previous one. Lack of resources to plan and implement processes on sides of decision making. Okay, that's interesting. Although I don't fully agree, maybe in terms of time and knowledge. Lack of cooperation between the both. Okay, thank you for this. You don't need to turn off the Menti, as we might use it a bit once more. And I'll go back to my presentation, which is, I believe, here. That was definitely to the point. And that was something that I will speak mostly for the next few minutes. So to sum it up, and it was very well reflected in your insights, there are the following barriers of participation, and they can be divided into these definitions. Comes from a nice publication that is linked here on Youth for a Just Transition. It's a report from the European Commission from 2020 on good practices of youth participation. I recommend to everyone. And they divided barriers of youth participation to systemic, so more structural, on the side of decision makers, let's say. So this is what the system is and the barrier provided for young people through this system. And youth related, so barriers that exist on the side of young people, such as, for example, this lack of interest. And on the systemic side, we have lack of trust in young people. So decision makers, adults, don't treat and don't believe that young people are equal partners in these democratic processes. Then they don't believe in their capacity and skills to participate. There is this tokenistic approach, which means that even if we invite young people to participate in democratic processes, we don't really take into account their voice. We pretend that we do, but in reality, we just treat them, we use them to show that our democratic process involves young people, but in reality, nothing really changes. There is lack of feedback mechanisms, which means that young people participate, but their voice, they cannot see the results of their action, which is strongly demotivating for them, especially that they need to go out of their comfort zone to take the voice. And there are language and culture barriers. So first, participation, this formal participation, traditional forms of participation are very formal and difficult for young people to enter. There is formal language, formal patterns, formal adults, and young people need to, even the language is difficult to understand somehow, and young people need to adapt to the adults to be listened to. So not only to enter the process, but also for adults to treat them seriously, they need to step into their shoes. And sometimes it's when I have an opportunity to meet, for example, with members of local youth councils, especially from smaller towns, I have this feeling that this looks quite odd when we have basically young people who should be young people in democratic processes, but instead they are made to pretend that they are adults. They need to dress as adults, speak like adults, think like adults, and this is definitely not the way we see the youth participation. And from the youth-related side, there is lack of trust of young people in decision-making processes and in democracy in general, which is connected to this lack of feedback, tokenistic approach, but also lack of knowledge, for example. Lack of information and skills to equally participate. So they don't know the spaces of participation and they don't know how to make their voice be heard. And logistical and administrative barriers, which is more connected to this time and to the distance they need to cross, to lack of resources to take part to many activities that they need to do throughout the day. And now I'd like you to come back to this Menti to ask you for the methods that you see that motivate young people to participate. So please join back the same link or the same code. You probably already have it on your computer. And I will try to move to another slide. Okay, I have first people joining. Realistic. This I don't understand, but I understand, okay, what motivates them is when their voice can be, they can voice their own opinion, so there is really space to participate. Safe space where they can participate, where they are not judged, where they have an opportunity to organizing discussions with decision makers and youth. So common platform to discuss on, I suppose, equal terms. When they see the change they can make in their community. So probably this is connected more to follow up, to seeing the results of their actions. Transparency of the process, super important. Again, the change, the follow up on participation results. Definitely. So if they step out of the comfort zone, they should see the results of their actions. F to F events. what's that? Anyone wants to explain a bit, join and tell me what does it mean?
I think it's face-to-face events.
Okay. One-to-one individual approach according to the interest before they join a group. So creating spaces for youth participation, I assume, based on the interest of young people, or even designing the spaces for youth participation based on their interests. Okay, thank you for these inputs. I think we'll list also some more, but this is what I will try to focus on since now. So I will try to show you how in the DeepL network we are overcoming these barriers, let's say one after another. And I'm starting with the barrier of lack of trust in young people. So from the decision makers' perspective, from the municipality officers' perspective, and lack of trust of young people in democratic processes. Barrier of tokenistic approach, which I explained before, and barrier of lack of information and skills. And here I would underline that it's not about only young people, but it's also about the decision makers and municipality officers. Our approach to this is that we organize trainings to build the capacity of municipality officers, youth workers, and young leaders, even though we work mostly with adults to provide them with skills to create quality participation spaces. But here what we try to do is to connect youth workers, decision makers, and young people in the same training. So when we send, for example, 3 people to a training in Strasbourg, we try to invite 3 people from these 3 groups, and if possible from the same region or even the same city, because when they meet, they can break the barriers that divided them and build some common ground, even not even during the training itself, but during the travel, during the meals, during the walk to the venue of activities, and in the future where they need to cooperate to create some participatory projects or spaces, they already have an entrance to these different worlds. So to the NGO world, to the decision makers world, or municipality world, and to the youth dimension. We also invite we also try to promote co-creation in youth participatory spaces and processes. And this is one of these highest levels on the ladder of participation. The highest would be the co-management, which is very difficult to achieve. But what we try to do is to always include young people in designing participatory spaces and processes from the very beginning till the end. And the last approach is to educating young multipliers. So it's a bit difficult to educate young people all by themselves directly, because, as you were saying, they are not very interested in participating, or they are not interested in listening to adults that try to deliver them the message. But if we take young leaders who have some connections at schools, for example, at their youth field, youth community, and we educate, we bring them the capacity to interact with young people and provide them with knowledge to how to participate and why is it relevant, they already have the trust, and for them it's easier to convince and bring young people to the table. And here I would say I have 2 good examples. First is from the municipality of Guimarães, where DeepL network was responsible for supporting the creation of local youth strategy. And usually the strategy is to involve as many stakeholders as possible, to find a common ground, to build the strategy for the next common years in the most democratic process as possible. And young people are, of course, very relevant part of this process. So we always try to consult at least them in how this process, how this youth strategy should look like. But in Guimarães, instead of just providing, asking young people to contribute, we asked actually involve young people in the process. We trained young people on how to provide the consultation process and how to participate in the process of developing youth strategy. And they were actually responsible for the implementation of consultations around the youth strategy in their schools. So we built their capacity to gather information, to open workshops for their peers, and then to participate in the process of developing local youth strategy as the other members of the local community. And this brought ownership to the strategy and to the project, empowered young people to participate, not only here by providing them with skills, but also to participate and be creators in youth participation in the future. And it built their trust into youth strategy that was created. And another example is from the municipality of Cascais, where we are nowadays responsible for supporting the implementation of youth participatory budget. First, young people are educated about the mechanisms of the budget in a gamified way through board games that were developed for this sole reason. But also they have a possibility to create the rules of the youth participatory budget. So the rules of the budget are not set up upfront by the adults. They were from the beginning established by young people themselves. They set up the rules for the proposals, the rules for the choosing the proposals, even the amounts behind the budget and the projects. They also coordinate the implementation of the budget in different schools. They have representatives to the municipality who work on the implementation of the whole budget in different schools in Cascais. And what's also important is that young people do not only participate in their own soup. So they have not only a possibility to propose projects to the youth participatory budget, but they also have a possibility to propose projects to the participatory budget for general public. And this is even, or at least was, somehow mandatory. So they could propose 2 projects as a class to the youth participatory budget, and then, for example, 1 to the public budget. And projects in the public, in the general budget, proposed by young people are often selected. This also creates some sort of empowerment and builds trust among young people, because they know that the process that they participate in was created by them and for them, and is actually led by other young people that they know in their class, and they can step in and join whenever they want. Coming back to the overcoming the barriers, let's talk about lack of feedback mechanisms and language and culture barriers I was explaining before. So I think we all agree that for the democratic processes, especially for young people whose trust in democratic processes is very low and it's completely out of their comfort zone, instant feedback about how their participation was used and what are the results of their participation is very important. Supporting and involving, so is the supporting and involving young people in the implementation of the project. So we don't want just young people to be consulted on the topic. We want young people to take responsibility for the implementation, to understand that just providing information is not enough. It's important also to take ownership, to take action to implement, so that they can understand that the process is from the beginning till the end. and also so that they can share with young people that their voice mattered and there is really a change that they wanted to. Another way of overcoming the budget from our side is follow-up strategies. So once we have young people who participated in democratic process or in anything that brings them closer to the democratic process, so for example, a mobility, somewhere where they can learn about the values of European Union, importance of youth participation, and so on, we feel that there is a need to set up a successful and quick follow-up strategy, not to lose the empowerment and not to lose the engagement of young people at that moment. So when they come back to the municipality, they should already have an opportunity to join other spaces of youth participation. It can be voluntary actions for some organization that they are interested in. It can be information about youth participatory structures at the local level that they can contribute to, and so on. And the last approach is to start with the interests of young people. As somebody pointed out in the Menti, young people are not interested in participating in decision-making processes, simply because they have many different interests, right? Maybe they want to sit and play games or engage and hang out with other young people, or they are interested in simply completely something different, and lack of trust in democratic processes doesn't help at all. But we notice that if we provide them with topics that they really are interested in, their participation might basically explode in this sense. But let's talk a bit later. So here I have examples of our municipality of Portimao, and our project Inicjativa Jovem, which was sort of participatory budget conducted on youth e-participation platform. But here the young people were first part of setting up the rules, but represented in the group that was setting up the rules. They could propose their ideas, and they were also responsible for the implementation of the projects that were chosen, with the support and mentorship of DIPL network employees. So we provided the structure, but also we supported them in the implementation of the activities, and all the feedback was provided to the participants through different channels. So for example, Instagram, Facebook, websites, but also through the e-participation platforms where they clearly can see the results of the participatory process. And another would be Community Challengers, which is a bit different. It's an international project we are part in. And it's about young people's participation in the environmental protection, environmental awareness projects at the local level. So we aim to build the capacity of local young people to understand what are the climate challenges and threats for environment at the local level, to map it and to act as advocates, as change makers at the local level to promote more environmentally sustainable processes and changes. And what was interesting for me in this process is that when we try to consult young people through questionnaires, open questionnaires, we rarely have a big input. We rarely receive many answers, especially for questionnaires that are actually take like 20 minutes to answer to. But when we ask them for the topics that they are interested in, so the climate and environment, through the same channels as usual, we had plenty of significant answers and inputs from young people. So they really, really wanted to participate. And this is also the case of pilot project in Portimao. It's not like young people love to participate in activities that we provide, but when we opened the activities connected to climate and environment, apparently there were young people who were more than interested to join, and young people to whom we before did not have this connection. And the last ways to overcome the barriers, and I'll be coming to the end shortly, I hope, is first to provide young people with alternative ways of participation, as traditional forms might not be enough nowadays. Traditional forms are simply formal and quite boring for young people. Although they can participate, for example, through many different options that I'll tell you about later. Use youth-friendly language and communication channels, so to enter the spaces and ways of the communicating with young people that is understandable and approachable for them. Digitalizing the process to increase the engagement and to reach out to bigger community of participants. And use gamification or game-based learning to also increase the engagement and to facilitate the process to go through them with the process of learning or participation in an easier, more interesting manner. As for the alternative methods of participation, this is basically everything that is not a traditional form of participation. That is not, for example, a standard local youth council, a standard youth participatory budget. So young people might be more eager to participate through campaigning, through youth activism, to use more digital spaces to provide, to sign up onto some ideas and present it, to participate from time to time concerning on specific topic on the changes that they want to participate in. It's not a limited number, so I will not list the alternatives ways of participation, but in general, opening alternative methods of participation brings more attention among young people. Using digital tools is not a solution to enhance the participation, but it's an alternative that involves more and speaks to more young people. The digital tools are often more visual, are more natural for young people that use the social media. I'm not saying that they're super skilled in using digital tools, but the digital world speaks to them better and creates simply an added value. So if you add digital tools to youth participatory spaces, you get a better engagement and bigger audience of participants. Then to inform participants, you can use, for example, game-based learning, either on board games, through board games that are designed to inform young people about youth participatory processes, or for example, for digital games that we use to inform about how the participatory democratic processes look for in the European Union, how the European Union influences their life, and so on. So we bring information through the most engaging way we can find, trying to put them in an entertaining way. Another way is to use gamification, which is taking all the methods that are engaging in youth participation, in games, in video games or board games and so on, such as the methods that you can see on the screen nowadays, and using them to enhance the youth participation processes. So for example, here in Portimao, in our Inicjatywa Jovem, we would gratify the participation of young people. So being active in the platform provides you with some points that then you can exchange for small discounts, for example, in a surfing club or in a cinema. Using these methods is of course not a perfect solution. It's not a solution itself, because as you can probably know, if these methods would always work to make the process more engaging, there wouldn't be boring games. And there are boring games, so using just the methods is not a solution. You have to do it in a good, clever way, which is a completely different topic. I'm just pointing out the ways. So this would sum up the strategies that we use, and I'll be happy to share it with you with the presentation later. I'm also And with this presentation, you can also learn about some reports that connected us, Dipol Network, to youth e-participation and also to Open Community, which I'm following for some time already now. And I'm also trying to promote the G platform. More about you can learn from the report from the study session, where also Eva, I think, had their session and on the Open platform itself and Open Community. So these reports you can find later in the presentation or on the internet. And this would be all from my side. I'm available for questions or for closing the topic.
Thanks a lot for that informative presentation. So now we have a few minutes where we can maybe take some questions from the participants. I do have a couple myself, but I'll ask you one of the questions I have, and then maybe in the meantime the participants can either put the question in the chat, or you can take the floor by raising your hand. So from my end, I liked when you mentioned the fact that first and foremost, I like the way that you link the barriers and then presented solutions to them. So like in a way, the barriers might be, if we look at them, might be an opportunity to understand how to better engage with young people. I don't know if it would be, you mentioned the last part on the concept of gamification. Maybe you can share with us, I mean, or suggest practical examples. For example, you mentioned games, board games, and things like that. Maybe you can share with us a practical example, or from where one can access more information how to use gamification to engage young people.
This is a broad topic. A practical example I'll be able to present you shortly with our project Game Plus that focuses on using gamification, more on education. And I'm currently working on the publication on the field. There is a great study, Game Educators Handbook by Berke, I believe, which is a great source of information on this topic. In general, the gamification methodologies, well, you can see it in some of our projects. For example, even in the name Community Challengers, where you could see the superheroes in the logo. This is what we do to provide the story. So you're not just a random young person that sits in front of their computer and is responsible for their own flowers and so on. So very small scale, but you're actually a community challenger, a superhero with a cape, like in the Marvel movies, that can provide a real change in the local community. And this story and this empowering through game methods is a practical example of how you can use gamification to enhance participation.
Thanks, Eva.
Thanks very much for the input, Matt. I was wondering, when you mentioned the initiative in the city of Portimão, if you could tell us, I don't know if you know it exactly in detail, but if you could tell us about the experiences they make in using their e-participation platform.
What do you mean? Sorry.
How does it work? How was the onboarding of the youth? Did they manage to activate young people? Which experience are positive? Is it positive or negative? Does it use a lot of their resources and so on?
Sure. I don't know the details on the feedback of young people. I didn't read the feedback reports of young people from the platform, also because it was local level. But first, the platform we were using is My Polish, which is a Portuguese platform for e-participation, more adjusted to young people. So this was already a good head start, I would say. The problem we faced was that we first designed the participation process, and then we tried to adapt the one platform that we chose, which is very tricky because you need to either stay flexible with the platform or with the tools that you want to involve, or with the process. there must be some flexibility somewhere. We managed to have a nice engagement, not only from the people we usually work with. So there were, let's say, few hundreds of young people participating in the whole process, and some dozens of projects proposed in the platform, which seems like a nice involvement. And also the exchange after follow-up through comments and ideas was quite significant. But then I believe we didn't manage to reach the proper scale and opportunities of youth participation. So still there are some barriers, and I'm not competent enough to say where exactly in Portimao to approach this participation better.
We have another question from Anita. So this is linking very much with use of social media. So Anita is asking you if you have any experience using platforms like TikTok to engage young people in participation.
No, sorry, but with TikTok we don't have any experiences. Mostly because we are simply. We don't work with TikTok. We are maintaining, we are also not a big organization, so we cannot afford to have people that dedicated solely to the communication channels. And that's why we manage only channels like website, Instagram and Facebook accounts to provide information about projects that we develop. In the youth centers, they have also a different set of channels, but I think mostly they focus on using Instagram at the moment to contact with young people. We had experience, for example, in using Discord as a communication channels for some activities. So this is more out of the usual repertoire, I would say.
In fact, I think it's the point here as well is the ability to use different social media platforms rather than just one particular. And again, I think with Discord, it relates with the concept of gamification, because usually young people, the little I know about Discord, usually Discord and online gaming app go a bit together. I don't know if there are any other questions. In the meantime, in the chat, I also posted the website of the PAL. So I think we have a comment here by Roderick, which is quite a long one, I see. And I think and then you made a reference with yourself that spending time with young people. I think this is, I don't know what's your take about it, that dedicating time to actually engage young people in participation. And I think at one point you mentioned, Matthew, that e-participation is not a quick fix. It doesn't, you need to put a lot of time in it, and maybe you can share a little bit more about that as well. And even I think with gamification, I think there's a lot goes into planning to eventually manage a successful decision-making process.
Sorry, but the question would be?
So the question is that rather than a question, I think when certain you come up with concept of participation, there's a lot of time that needs to be dedicated in preparation. It doesn't just happen. I mean, needs to be some kind of strategy and a lot of planning.
Yeah, definitely. And somebody points out, Roderick points out very well, that it's great when in this planning we have the young people involved from the beginning, because sometimes we think of great ideas to involve young people, and we are fixed on these ideas, and we provide them with spaces and with all the processes, but we forgot them to ask what they really want, if they want, and without also involving them in the process, there is no ownership of the process and lack of trust in the process. So definitely it requires a lot of planning, and if possible, involving the young people from the very beginning till the end, if possible on equal basis, and in an informed way. So they should not only be involved, but also realize why they are involved, and have skills to participate equally to adults. So to speak with them, to speak with other young people, to understand the concept behind it, and so on. We now are nowadays trying to create a youth advisory boards next to DeepL network, which I hope will support these processes in the future.
Thanks a lot, Matthew, for your input. I think I don't know if there are any other questions or comments. Once again, thank you a lot for your input. As I was mentioning in the start, we're holding as the DG consortium, we hold these open community meetings every 2 months. If you would like to get to know more about these meetings, you can, and I'm leaving the email and link to. So I didn't copy it, but I'll copy it here again. You can join our newsletter and also email us to follow updates of our projects. I think next month we will be hopefully launching we will have the official launch of the open.me platform, the upgrades, and hopefully in May we will be also sharing the intellectual outputs that we have been working on. So if you want to follow up these updates, you can follow us on DG and dg-project.eu, or otherwise get in touch with some of us that's from your country. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. And once again, Matthew, thanks for your input this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Welcome.
Thank
Thank
you
you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a lovely
Having me.
day.
Bye.